In this James the Bike Guy video, we're checking out a gravel bike that might even be classified a super bike. Something from Specialized with a whole ton of technology to make it a killer rig for your adventure or race gravel ride. So in this video, we're gonna check out the 2022 Specialized Diverge Expert and go into some of the features and designs of this bike, as well as find out exactly what it weighs. So if this kind of thing is interesting to you, be sure to hit that subscribe button and sit back with me as we check out this gravel superbike. The Specialized Diverge model series has been around for quite a while, and in fact, it's one of the most popular in their road lineup. Now, it used to be that the endurance style road bike, such as the Specialized Roubaix, would pick up the bulk of road bike sales. But these days, as people are wanting to be a little more adventurous, be able to take their bikes places that they haven't otherwise, the Diverge has really stepped in. And part of that is because the Specialized Diverge is an incredibly versatile rig. It has geometry similar to the Roubaix, although a bit different, and we'll get into that later. It's got the capability for long rides. It's still light enough to be snappy. And then it's got features such as the Future Shock on the front end that allows some compression while riding to make it really comfortable over all sorts of surfaces. Now, this particular one we're looking at is their Expert model, which means it's one down from the very top before you get into the S-Works series. And that means it's going to come with some really incredible parts on it. But it's important to note that the Diverge series starts all the way at a base model aluminum bike and goes up to their top tier, no holds barred S-Works model. Jumping into the frame of the Diverge Expert, let's talk about what it's made out of. Now, these frames can be made out of both aluminum or carbon, and there's two different tiers of aluminum as well as carbon for these bikes. But the Expert version is going to be made out of their 9R carbon frame. So basically 9R is the step down from the 11R that you get on the S-Works model, but it maintains much of the design, a similar mold, and the layup process is just slightly different. So on this carbon frame, you're going to get a 12 by 142 millimeter through axle and back. Going forward to the carbon fork, you get a 12 by 100 millimeter front through axle, carbon blades to this tapered head tube, which houses the real trick of the Diverge. Now, the Specialized Diverge uses something called a Future Shock, and on the Expert level, it's going to be a Future Shock 2.0. The 2.0 indicates that it's going to have an adjustment so you can firm up or soften up the compression of the handlebar. But basically, underneath here, we've got a little bit of room for this to compress. So as you're going down the road, you'll begin to feel it absorb some of the bumps as you go through. And because they're doing it axially versus splay, meaning that basically this is in line with the front end of the bike, you're not going to lose any of the momentum like you would if the shock was in the fork. Now, a lot of people are concerned that this is going to kind of move around or feel weird while you're pedaling. So I've actually had the first generation Diverge as well as their Creo SL Evo, which is the e-bike version of this bike. And I've found that that has actually worked really well. Now, of course, because of that adjustment, you can dial it down to where it's basically firm. So if you wanted no movement at all, you can do that, or otherwise enjoy the compliance that comes with it. The frame is internally routed, although, as we'll get into later, drivetrain's actually wireless. But you do have the two brake hoses going into the internal of the frame, also through the fork, which makes for a really clean look as it comes down to that front axle. And then going to the back, you'll have a seat clamp for a 27.2 seat post. And you'll notice that this has a divorced top tube and seat stay. Now, the reason they do that is that's going to allow a little more flex as you're going through, again, adding to the comfort. And then in back, we've got mounts for racks and fenders with a front fender mount just behind the threaded bottom bracket. And then in the down tube, I'm really psyched to see that it's got internal frame storage. So as you can see there, you can go inside the frame and place stuff in there, which allows you to run tubes, your gear, maybe some nutrition if you wanted that while you're out riding. And then you can put your cover right back on, clicks into place. Now you've got a mount for a water bottle on both sides here. You're gonna have another set of mounts just in front of the bottom bracket. And then right on top of the top tube, you'll have a mount for a bento box. The last bit of mounts we'll see on the bike is, of course, on the fork to be able to run fork bags on the side. This also is compatible with fenders, with fender mounts as well. So you could use this as a pretty killer commuter bike if you wanted basically the highest performance, you know, that Panamera Evo of a gravel bike to commute in. Or it makes for an awesome adventure rig with lots of room to put all your stuff. Cockpit componentry on the bike is styled for a gravel adventure series. So here you can see that this actually has one of their riser handlebars. So this particular handlebar is what they call their specialized adventure gear hover bar. So the hover bar has a 12-degree flare. So you'll see that the lower part of the handlebar kind of comes out to the side. You've got a bit of a rise to it, and then nice section all across with a little bit longer reach to give you a bit more room. Now it's connected to that future shock using a specialized aluminum stem. Now these stems, you can replace that with whatever you want. Just because it has a future shock does not mean you're locked into the stem that comes with the bike. And then going out back is the body geometry power saddle with titanium rails. It's then mounted up on a specialized Terra 27.2 carbon seat post, and this seat post is actually designed in a way, you can see it thins a little through that center to allow a bit of flex to add some additional compliance to the bike. Drivetrain specs for the 2022 Expert start with some wireless shifters. So these are the SRAM Rival shifters. So Rival is going to be the GX level shifter if you're a mountain biker, or say essentially the 105 level. However, unlike Shimano, in that 105 or the Rival level we're looking at here, it's going to have electronic shifting, but not just any traditional electronic shifting. It's totally wireless going to the back. So on the handlebar here, the right side, the click will bring you to a harder gear. And then on the non-drive side, if you click this button, it'll bring you to an easier gear. Now this is front brake in America, rear brake in America, of course operating some 2-piston calipers to these 160 millimeter center lock rotors. And then the wireless shifting is controlled via the SRAM GX rear derailleur. So this GX rear derailleur is straight off of a mountain bike, which allows them to run a super wide range cassette. So this cassette, of course, is the 11 to 50 tooth cassette. So it's going to go 11 up to 50 tooth for super wide range, pedaling forward to this SRAM Rival crankset with a narrow wide 40 tooth chainring. So this chainring, you can see narrow wide, which allows it to retain the chain very well. And because this electronic shifting rear derailleur has a clutch, it's going to keep things nice and quiet. And that derailleur is going to move almost robotically as it's wirelessly controlled by the shifters on the handlebar. The bike is going to be rolling through all different terrains on these specialized Pathfinder Pro tires. The Pathfinder Pro tire that's on this rig is a 700 by 42 millimeters, so super wide. And I like the tread pattern because it's got a bit of a smooth center line to it, file tread on the side, and then as you get really aggressive onto the side of the tire, it's got some tread blocks there as well. Now the neat thing with the design of the tire is through most of your road riding, you're not actually going to be getting that far over onto the tread, which means it's going to roll a bit faster. But when you do have that tread, of course, on the sides to be able to grip. Now tire wise, you can run a 650B in here as well. The bottom bracket's high enough for that. And you can see there's pretty good clearance for just a little bit wider 700C tire, but certainly a much wider 650 tire if you swapped out the wheels. Now, speaking of wheels, this is Roval's Terra C rim. So this is a carbon fiber rim laced up to a really nice set of DT Swiss 370 hubs. Now, this isn't your standard hub because it does have the EXP conversion on this 370 hub, which means it's got star ratchet mechanism inside of the free hub body, which is going to allow for a nice low drag but really durable engagement mechanism. The actual weight of the 2022 Specialized Diverge Expert in a 56 comes in and weighs 19.82 pounds. Thanks for watching this video on the 2022 Specialized Diverge Expert. This carbon superbike is one hell of a rig, at least in my opinion, and I'd love to know yours down in the comment section below. So drop those comments and be sure to browse the channel as well as click subscribe if you enjoyed what you saw.